everybody, this is Sid Sexton and my good friend Keith Glines with another episode of the Overlap Podcast, episode 113 actually. And if you're a new listener or just coming back to the Overlap Podcast, what we're talking about here are the overlaps between business, family, fitness, parenting, management, and how you show up for the workout is how you're going to show up for work and vice versa. And really getting better in one aspect of life should and will help you get better in all other aspects of life. And really, there's no compartmentalization in life, you know? That's the overlap in a nutshell. And today we've got, someone that I think embodies that whole deal pretty well for another guest episode, Keith. Is that what we're calling these? 2 in a row. Yeah. Well, we're going through a phase.
That's right. We had a phase. We went a long time, just you and I riffing, but we figured that's because
that's because Travis said he liked that.
Yeah.
But our wives don't. They hear enough of it.
I know.
My wife definitely doesn't want to hear any more of it. She hears me riff enough. But before we get into Chris, what you been up to, man? You've been busy. I've
been really busy.
Yeah.
Creating and family and getting the house ready, that kind of stuff.
Retreats and whatnot.
Vision summits. Dude, it's just been a busy time. I mean, we've not seen each other in a while.
It's been a little while. I think when you were at jiu-jitsu, I was not. And then whenever I was there, you weren't.
That's right. Except last night, I got to see you at the Halloween party. That was awesome.
We rolled in suits, man. I got like old suits for there's a gym up in Louisville that does it every year for Halloween. I was like, oh, that's awesome. And I was like, man, I'm going to go get these old suits. And I got a couple, and Jiva wore one, I wore one, and see if like jiu-jitsu really works with like regular clothing. And it kind of does. It's a little bit different. The grips are different, but it felt like jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I got a couple.
The video, you need to, so if you're listening to this, go to Sid's profile on Instagram and look at the video. Did you edit that all yourself?
I did. It was
I'm pretty impressed.
I was sitting there and Jose was kind of in shock that I knew how to do all that.
I'm really in shock. I mean, you put like stars on it and everything.
I know, it was cool. And I had Eazy-E in the background.
I like it. I like it.
It was fun. So yeah, if you're not training jiu-jitsu, I don't really know what you're doing. You probably should. I'm glad that Chris isn't, because that would be a problem we'd have to try to solve, and I don't really want to do that. But it's been a busy time. It's been a busy season. It's in the fall, and I don't know if you, the listener, are. I don't know if this is the same for everyone else, but it seems like the fall is when I get the most busy. And I've talked about this a lot in the podcast, but my regular MO is we set plans in quarter 4. Quarter 1 and quarter 2, I kind of just let those plans go and sort of function. You know, if there's some tweaks here and there, I let that happen. But, I mean, I go ahead and take care of those. But for the most part, I try to let the plan play out. And then by the end of the second quarter, the end of June, I spend July kind of gathering data, and then I spend the rest of quarter 3 figuring out what the big issues are, try to get 2, 3, 5 issues that I know we need to handle, and I spend, the rest of the year trying to solve those issues, and that's what I'm in the middle of right now. And, if you listen to the last podcast, you heard Forrest on, and if you can imagine working with that guy, I get about 17 emails a day. So he's pushing me pretty hard. I'm kind of pushing him pretty hard. We're meeting twice a week for a couple of hours every time. We met this morning, and we got 50 issues on the issues list almost every time, and we're just kind of cranking them out.
I mean, I knew you had issues, but
yeah. But it feels good, man. It feels good. We're making lots of traction and cleaning up discovering, uncovering, and solving issues that had been sort of overlooked for the last year or so. So it's a lot of work, but it's fun. It's invigorating.
So you want an integrator, huh? It made you go to work.
Well, yeah. Eventually, I feel like I'm working towards working less and having less issues. And I feel like before this time last year, maybe I had my head in the sand a little bit about some of the issues that we had.
That's what EOS does. It kind of illuminates those.
It does illuminate them, especially if you've got an integrator that's like real observant and not in your industry.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that way? Why are you doing that? And you don't even answer. You just go, crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we're kind of going to talk about that today with the guest that we're making sit over here, just stay silent.
Well, good. He should.
Yeah.
With that mustache.
Yeah.
All right. So let me introduce our guest today. He's a good friend of both of ours. I actually say a good friend, and I mean it. Chris May. Welcome, Chris.
Yeah. Stoked to be here. Kind of a full circle moment for me. Our friendship kind of started with me sending you a direct message about y'all's podcast. So
I didn't remember it was about the podcast.
Long-time listener, first-time guest, huh?
Oh, my goodness. How about that?
Look, Chris, if you have goals, look what happens.
Yeah. Well, the funny part about that is I genuinely did reach out to you about the podcast with the intentions of wanting to start a friendship. So
okay, well, there you go.
So.
Yeah, you're a great networker. I'm terrible at it, but you're good. Yeah, you did. You reached out to me, and I remember us meeting. I just don't remember what the basis of the email was.
Well, I can tell you that the basis of our meeting, I think we're supposed to meet for like 30 minutes. We sat there for like 2 hours, and we were a brand new startup at the time, and I told you, I was like, man, we were so close to making money this year. I was like, man, we almost got there. We're just barely in the red, and you stopped me, and you were like, wait, so you didn't make money as a business this year? And I was like, no, but we were so close. You're like, you lost. Like, the point is, you've got to make money as a business. The only way you go out of business is if you run out of cash, right? And you put profit first in my hands, and I think I've read it 3 times since then. So
awesome. Yeah, well, good. I'm glad that was helpful because that's the freaking point. Yeah, you play sports, I play sports. I like to win.
Yep, same.
I mean, he played at a little higher level.
He played at a little higher level.
Yeah.
So Chris May, former Division I college football player.
I know it,
but I didn't realize you play. I would have thought you played tight end.
I wish I played tight end.
That would have been
that would have been the dream.
Would that have been a dream? Were you not fast enough?
No, not straight line fast enough. I'm, for a fairly bigger guy, I'm pretty athletic, but I'm not.
Hell yeah. You can do a backflip.
A long time ago.
Okay.
But,
can you still do one?
No.
Let's try.
That's a lot to move.
Look, we're gonna try, and I'm gonna video it and put it out.
You're gonna have to buy a life insurance policy for me to do that.
I know someone you can get that from.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But no, man, I didn't have the straight line, the straight line speed to be able to play a tight end position.
What do you need to? How fast do you need to be on a 40?
Much faster than me. I mean,
is that like a 4.8? Is that a 4.7? That's fast.
Something like that. Yeah, I was probably 5 flat, somewhere around in there.
That seems pretty fast for a big guy.
Yeah, I committed to South as a defensive end, and then they moved me to offensive line. So I kind of had that little bit of athletic background from playing a little bit more of a quote unquote athletic position. But I mean, man, if you look at it, the tackles in the NFL are some of the most athletic guys on the face of the planet.
Their feet are fantastic. They're like ballerinas.
I mean, you've got to think about, I've got to move backwards and stop a guy that is 6'4", runs a 4.5, and can probably clean 4.05 from running through my chest. Like, you've got to have some athleticism to be able to do that, because those guys coming off the edge are freaks.
Yeah, I don't know how God, why did God make people like that? That's crazy.
That's a great question.
It seems unreasonable. It's the guy driving around the F-350 that doesn't have a boat or a skid steer he's got to carry around. It just doesn't need, you don't need that.
Have you seen the lineman that plays for Florida that's 4'15"?
He is. Yes, I have seen him.
Not seen that
massive
guy.
Human being.
He's a massive human being.
415 pounds?
415 pounds.
Huh.
We played against a guy.
He moves? He moves okay?
He kind of moves.
Well, I guess he takes up a lot of space.
Yeah.
We played against a guy that played at Tennessee in 2013, 6'8", 360, and played defensive tackle. So, yeah, that was we ran like an inside zone, so it was me and the guard go to have a double team, and I went to hit him as hard as I could, and I went backwards, and was like, oh, this is going to be a long day.
Oh, God, you just got to like chop him at the knees or something? What do you got to do?
I tried that too. It didn't work great.
Really? Oh, man.
But but yeah, it was that was a fun experience. So.
Okay. So, so former college, D1 college football player. We already got the cat out of the bag, University of South Alabama. Owner of LTN Insurance. He's going to explain what LTN means in just a little bit. Also, board member for Energy, which is the EOS group that me, you, Forrest, really have been operating for a couple of years. Yeah. We got a meeting on the last Thursday of every month in Fairhope, and I think is it the third or the second meeting, or the second Thursday of every month in Mobile at the Innovation Portal.
Yep, second Wednesday.
Second Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? Okay.
Yep, second Wednesday.
Wednesday. That's right, because we moved the small group meetings to accommodate that, or at least we moved ours, Keith and I's. And so, husband and father of two, and a great grower of facial hair. He's always got a mustache or a beard.
He changes it up a lot.
He does, and he's got hair. What an asshole!
For now.
Ah, well, okay.
We'll see. But all the men on both sides of my family don't have it anymore. So
I think it's a female genetic trait. Go see your mother. So, give us a little intro. Give us a little bio. What, where'd you grow up? What was it like? All that stuff.
So I'm originally from Tuscumbia, Alabama, but
where is that?
Nobody knows where that's from.
I've heard of it.
That's like saying you're from Silver Hill.
Oh,
great
okay.
town, but there's just not a lot of people know about it unless you're from there. So I'm actually I tell everybody I'm from Florence, Alabama. Mm-hmm. So basically the most northwest corner of the state of Alabama you can go. We're
almost a Yankee.
Basically.
Almost.
If you know where Huntsville is, you basically go west about an hour and you run into my hometown. So pretty much born and raised there. Lived there my whole life. My whole family is still back there.
Is Athens close to there?
Yeah, very close. Very close.
Do you know who is from Athens?
Who?
The Alabama Shakes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So is Philip Rivers.
Philip Rivers.
Really?
Oh, that's right. Philip Rivers is. We played football there.
Yep.
They got a great stadium. And Stephen Rivers also.
Stephen is from there too. Yeah. Know both of those guys from some pickup
Yeah.
basketball. But we had a wrestling tournament there in high school at Athens.
And you wrestled.
I did wrestle
That's
in high
why
school.
I like this guy.
Yeah.
And you don't get into jiu-jitsu. He's way too big and he wrestled.
But yeah, so sports was kind of the life growing up, man. Like I've always loved that. I had ADHD really, really bad as a kid. Like,
okay, did you grow out of that?
I think I learned to cope with it than to grow out of it. I don't know if I definitely still have some ADHD and can be a little hyper and, move a little too quickly at times.
Mm-hmm. I can relate.
Yeah, right. So sports was kind of my outlet for that. That kind of would calm me down a little bit and give me something to fully pour myself into. Yeah. Which I love doing, man. I played everything that I could when I was growing up. Baseball. My parents didn't let me play football until I was a little bit older.
What's a little bit older?
I think I was. I would have been in 5th grade.
That's plenty old, buddy.
It's plenty old for sure. But I was trying to play when I was like 6 years old. But they're like,
you were
no,
probably
not
big
happening.
enough then.
Yeah. Well, I hit a really big growth spurt between my freshman and sophomore year. So I grew. I mean, I was probably 6', 6'1" then, maybe 200 pounds. And in that summer I grew to 6'4" and like 250. We hit a real weight program. They started giving us protein shakes afterwards. So it was kind of all of those things, just perfect combination. But I played football all through high school. I played basketball my like freshman year, and then I ended up not doing that and wrestled. So football, wrestle, and track.
Really, you didn't play basketball in high school? That was one of my questions. I'm like, how did you wrestle and manage basketball?
Yeah, I wish, but no, I played basketball, and we had a real old school coach, great, the local legend, Wayne Bracey was his name, and just great guy.
Is this Tuscumbia High School?
Deschler High School.
Deschler, okay.
Yep. Deschler High School is in Tuscumbia. It's named after Tommy Deschler, I think. Fun fact, Bear Bryant actually coached there for like a spring one time.
Wow.
So, yeah.
How about that?
But anyways, so I played basketball. Both of my like closest friends all wrestled, and they're like, you need to wrestle. I'm like, dude, I'm not wearing that singlet. Like, it's not happening.
Yeah.
And anyways, playing basketball, and I got invited by one of my friends' families to go on a trip to Gatlinburg. And I was like, man, I really want to go, but I was going to have to miss like one game or something like that during Christmas break. So I go to approach my coach and he sits me down. He's like, you can go on vacation or you can play basketball. I was like, I'm going on vacation. So no more basketball for me after that.
This was your freshman year?
Yes.
So your sophomore, junior, and senior year, you wrestled?
I didn't wrestle my sophomore year. I didn't do anything in the winter except work out my sophomore year. And then my junior year, I picked up wrestling and I actually broke my wrist. I broke my scaphoid bone. I don't know if y'all know what that is.
I don't even know where that, I've never heard of that bone.
I thought you said skateboard.
Yeah. It's a bone that's about that big that's in your wrist. It's itty bitty. And apparently your whole wrist rotates on it. So when I broke it, I had to be in a cast above my elbow for like 3 months so that I couldn't rotate my wrist. So I had to like learn how to write left-handed and do everything else left-handed basically. But yeah, I broke that the second match. So I only got to wrestle 3 matches. I wrestled one more. And then after, the tournament's over, I'm in the car on the way back. I'm like, man, my wrist is really hurting. Go to the doctor. They're like, it's broken. You're in a cast. Can't do anything. So then I wrestled. I only really got to wrestle my senior year and had a blast. Loved it. Go to state and all that fun stuff. I think I came in 3rd that year. I got beat by a guy that
out of Oxford. Because I hear they have like a good wrestling
not Oxford, but they're really, really good. It's a guy out of Piedmont.
Okay.
But he beat me in the semifinals, and he just knew more than I did.
Yeah.
And like he was athletic, good. He just had more experience, and I couldn't do anything about it. So, anyways, but I go from there and go to college, come down here to South.
How did that whole recruitment process go?
Yeah. So when I got to South, or when I first got recruited by South, Tommy Perry was my recruiter's name, and he came by the high school and was like telling us about it. Myself and then one of my teammates, his name's Dion Ballou. He ended up playing at Bama. But he came by and recruited
poor
us.
Guy.
Yeah, I know, right? And
South or Bama.
Yeah,
I guess
they offered him, and so me and him were going to like recruiting stuff together.
Okay.
To camps and whatnot. They were his first offer, and then they came back to me and were like, "Hey, we have some interest in you. Do you want to come to a camp?" And I'm like, where is Mobile? I don't even know where that is. I've never heard of South Alabama, but he was like, "We played Tennessee in 2013." I was like, "Okay, I'm interested. Like, let's talk." So I go, before that, I went to a camp at UT Martin up in Tennessee.
Okay,
and it was my first like real college camp experience. I did really well.
This
They ended up offering
year?
me. This is going into my senior year.
Okay. Summer before senior year.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. So UT Martin offers me. Then I come to a South camp and do really, really well. Got to hang out with the head coach for a little while.
As a tight end or a defensive end?
As a defensive end.
Okay.
Who was the head coach?
Joey Jones.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I grew up in Dora, Alabama,
Okay,
and he coached at Dora.
Did you go to Dora?
No, I didn't. I went to a private school there called Summerton Christian.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
You can't tell that he went to private school?
Really?
Look at Keith, and he looks like a private school graduate.
I can't say much with the mustache on my face right now.
That's all right. You're probably right.
But yeah, so they end up offering me a scholarship, and I'm sitting there next to my mom, and they bring me into a meeting room. They took like 5 of us from the camp and kind of, took us around campus a little bit. I guess that was the 5 that they felt performed the best or whatever. Sure. They bring us in one by one, offer us all a scholarship, and I'm sitting by my mom, and they're like, "Hey, we want to offer you a scholarship." I'm like, "Okay, well, like what does that mean? How much do you pay for?" And they're like, "No, it's a full ride." I was like, "Well, do I like commit now? Like I'm ready to go." My mom like grabs my hand and is like, "Hey, whoa. Like I understand you're excited. We're going to take a little bit to think on this, so on and so forth." So, but from that moment I was in.
You were in. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't take any other official visit except for Sal's. Like I just loved the coach that recruited me. Who
was the coach that recruited you?
Tommy Perry was his name.
That's right. You said that.
And he just did. Honestly, I probably learned some form of sales from him, from like a relational standpoint. Of he would call me and ask for my recommendation on stuff. Like there's kind of a local, somewhat famous Mexican restaurant called Rosie's Cantina. And he called me and was like, "Hey, where should I go eat?" Like he was up there recruiting somebody else. And I was like, "You should check out Rosie's Cantina. They've got great tortillas." He's like, "Okay, cool." He calls me back a week later and is like, "Hey, I went to Rosie's." Doesn't say anything about football. Is just asking me about life, and calls my mom and talks to her. And it was like, wow, man, like he he just built a relationship with me.
Sid, I know you're going to not believe this, but I've been to Rosie's.
I would, yeah.
How good are the tortillas?
Dude,
the tortillas are incredible.
They're the bomb.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're a problem.
I knew he would. You could be in Dublin. He'll send you immediately. You got to go eat here. You could be Dublin, Ireland, mind you. You could be in freaking Fayetteville, Arkansas. Oh, you got to go this place. You know.
So you're the foodie.
He's the foodie.
I like it.
Well, I was in sales in the corporate world for 9 years. So what do you do in sales? I mean, that's, you
take people to lunch.
You were saying you were like 250, 260 in college. I waited till my 30s to hit that. And mine was
not near as tall.
And mine was not from protein shakes.
That's great. So
So he built a relationship up. That's pretty fantastic.
And on top of that, man, I was sold on this. So my high school is like known for having a really, really good football program. So we went to like 3 straight state championships. We didn't win any of them because the teams down here in the South were just stacked.
Is this 4A, 3A?
4A.
Okay.
There was a stat, and it may have ended at this point, but this was back in like 2017 or 2018, that if you played 4 consecutive years at my high school, you played in at least one state championship game.
Oh, wow.
So we made it to the playoffs in 2007 and got beat by Dora, ironically, and it was like a failure of a year. Like it was because we had just gone to 3 back-to-back state championships and had these great classes. So this kind of tradition of winning and tradition of excellence, I just loved. And I loved the idea of South as a brand new program. It's like, man, like I kind of want to be on the ground floor of hopefully creating something like this down here. Mm-hmm. Like on my official or on one of my visits, walk into the field house and it's still dirt on the ground. So like that idea of just starting something was really, really exciting to me. So fast forward, get down here to South, have a great time down here, man. I really, really enjoyed playing football for that program and just had a good career and enjoyed it. And then got out of that. All I ever wanted to do was teach and coach.
Thanks, Sid and Keith, for allowing me this opportunity to explain why Pro 356 Consulting is back. Again, sponsoring and supporting the Overlap podcast. Number one, I just have found that this is a great podcast, that I share your values of the overlap concept, and I have found just so many great nuggets from listening to you guys. Number two is, I remember when you approached me at Hatch about starting a podcast, and I said, hey, that's why we built that podcasting studio at Coastal, and you guys took it up, and here we are. You've done 100 broadcasts, and now you're on the way to 200. And lastly, I just want to say that I just appreciate the way you guys do business, and I want to associate with you. So Pro 356 is glad to be back as a promoter and sponsor of the Overlap podcast.
Okay, guys, everyone knows if you're a business owner, a business leader, or you're just a person in the world needing help with accounting, you need a real partner. You need someone that's going to listen to you and not just plug numbers in to make their job easy to do your taxes. At least that's what I want. I've been through a lot of accountants in my life, and I have yet to find one even remotely as good as Johnny Baranco. He's the owner of Baranco and Associates, and he's the kind of guy that really doesn't manipulate your books to make his job easier. He really is trying to give you insights into your business or into your financial planning world. Whatever your goals are, he's there to help. And so I just encourage you to give him a call. Baranco and Associates, look him up online. It's barancoandassociates.com and just see if he can help you. He really is the accountant that I recommend to everyone, even before he was a sponsor of the podcast. So please, if you need an accountant, just do yourself a favor and give him a call.
Hey guys, this is Keith. Let me break down a scenario for you. Are you a business owner that is overwhelmed by the options of investing, but you're being told you need to invest in retirement, you need to invest in mutual funds, you need to buy some single stocks? Well, I have your fix. C2 Wealth Strategies, ran by our friend Wes Cody. Their website is c2wealth.com. If you are looking at investing at all and are confused by it, give them a call today. They will be happy to handle whatever you need. He's brought up very specific things that I need to be working on as a business owner in my investing life. Let him do that same thing for you. c2wealth.com, or go to the overlaplife.com page and click on sponsors.
Well, did they build the program while you were there? Were you part of the were you there before they built that awesome outdoor facility, like covered facility?
I was there
that place
well
is
before
awesome.
that. They've done a great job with that. And then
the new stadium's fantastic.
It's great.
I mean, it's legit.
It is, man. It's for a Sunbelt program. It is phenomenal. Like the facilities that they have are great. They've improved so much since I was there. But no, I got there the second year of the program. So first year was 2009. I got there in 2010. And then I actually, which they don't really do anymore now because of the transfer portal and all that stuff, I gray shirted.
Yeah, I've heard of gray shirt.
So I had to be Division I eligible from high school, you have to have a certain amount of credits. And I think the number's 48. Well, I had like 47 and a half, and they didn't catch it until I'd gone through the whole summer, all the way through camp. And they're like, hey, you're actually academically ineligible. We're going to submit it to the NCAA. I took this class called Algebraic Connections. The same thing happened to my buddy Dion Ballou that went to Bama, but he actually went the junior college route first. So he was able to go there, get his credits right. But somehow it got approved through their system. And that Algebraic Connections class was only half a credit instead of a full. So I had like 47 and a half credits.
That's crazy.
And they caught it. Luckily, they caught it with me because there was 3 kids that had signed letters of intent to play college the next year, and the class behind me that did the same thing. So they were able to catch it and correct it before then.
Okay.
But so
I took that class too, and it's a remedial class, so they don't give you much. So they're like, well, you probably need to take this first.
I never heard that.
Yeah, it was
Algebraic connection. So it's like pre-algebra or something?
It was like algebra 1A and 1B. So you had like 2 separate semesters that was the same class. They just took a lot longer to go through it.
Okay.
I liked math, but school was never really my thing. It was like, man, like I'm getting a degree and stay eligible. Like that sounds bad, but that was my outlook on it was, it ain't about the grades you make, it's about the hands you shake.
What? Wow.
Pull that out for a one-liner.
Yeah.
Right there it is.
I wish that I would have done better, but
Well, why?
Yeah, right.
Let's be honest about it. It doesn't really matter. C's get degrees.
they do.
What degree did you go after?
So I wanted to be a teacher and a
coach.
You
said that.
I want to be a head high school football coach and athletic director. That was always the goal for me.
Back up north?
Wherever.
Okay.
Wherever. I just wanted to be a head coach and kind of knew that going into it. It's like, I know that I want to do that. I know I want to be the athletic director too. I kind of always I've always enjoyed the aspect of whatever team that I was on. The biggest honor that you could get to me was being named captain. Mm-hmm. Like that was always my goal, was to be captain of the team. Something about having your peers respect you enough to name you as their captain was always a big thing for me.
Big deal. Yeah.
So I knew that that's kind of the path that I wanted to go to some extent. And
is that why you look like Ted Lasso right now?
I was going for Travis Kelce, but
I don't know. Probably not. Ted Lasso.
I wish I had his jersey sales. That'd be
be good. Yeah.
But
especially now that the Swifties are all over
exactly.
it.
Well, that's what he's talking about. I mean, Travis Kelce owes Taylor Swift for even being visible. I mean,
well,
come on.
I don't know about
Travis
that.
Kelce,
he's probably going down as the greatest tight end of all time. So I think he's done well for himself.
He's done well for himself, but she's definitely giving him a bump.
For sure.
In the last little bit.
For sure. He shot a shot,
He did.
He shot a shot. It
the greatest example of that. Maybe ever.
It really is, man.
Yeah.
I never thought about that. That's probably the greatest example. Now you see all these other people shooting their shots.
Right.
Oh, what a follower. But we keep interrupting you. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Carry on, Ted Lasso.
So
you wanted to be a coach and captain and all that.
And a captain, all that fun stuff. And so I went for physical education was the degree that I was going in. But similar, history kind of repeats itself here, that you get to a point if you're an athlete, you have to be a certain percentage through your degree to stay eligible. So if you're in like year 2, you've got to be at like 45% or something like that. So summer comes around and I had to have a certain amount of credits or whatever, and I was just a little bit behind it to stay in that degree path. And my counselor's like, look, you can take 3 classes this summer. If you make all A's in it, you'll be able to stay in the physical education degree and you'll be fine. Or you can take, it was 4 classes that summer. Normal class load in the summer is 2.
God, yeah, I know.
Yeah, so she was like, you can take 4 classes. If you make all A's, you'll be in it. Or you can take 2 and change your degree to exercise science. I was like, I'm changing my degree to exercise science. Like, what's the difference? She's like, well, you can still you won't have your teaching certificate, but you can go get emergency certified afterwards and you'll be fine. I was like, sold. I'm not keep me in class, like whatever. So that's the route that I chose, stayed in exercise science and get out and get into teaching and coaching, which I loved the one-on-one aspect of coaching and like seeing a kid go from point A to point B and like improve and like seeing that light bulb moment click is special. Like it's really cool to see that. But all the other like, man, I'm working 80 hours a week. And if I look at my pay stub, it's like, teaching at private school, it's like, dude, I just made $4 an hour. Like, there's no way this is going to be sustainable, So I actually read a book in that same period called Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. I don't know if you've ever read it.
Oh, it's a great book.
Phenomenal.
I've heard of it. I have not read it.
So Phil Knight literally went from selling encyclopedias door to door in Hawaii to what the Nike swoosh is today. And it's his memoir of how he did it. And I read that book and I'm not like if I'm going to read a book, it's going to be traction. It's going to be 10X is easier than 2X. It's going to be something that's application based that you can take and plug into business, right? Well, this is a story and I was hooked, man. Like I'm staying up to like 2:00 in the morning reading this book. I couldn't put it down. And it just gave me this itch of like, I want to start a business. Like that sounds like so much fun. It's crazy to say that now, but the like chaos of all of those things falling into place and like just kind of riding that roller coaster was like, man, that sounds like so much fun. So I decided I was going to get into sales because every athlete gets into sales, right? You got to be willing to have discipline, be told no, and get yelled at. Like, great, this will be a perfect fit.
Used to it. I've been trained for this.
Yes. On top of, I really liked the idea of being able to be paid my value that I brought to the company, not just based off of, because in coaching, like, man, the guy that works 100 hours a week and the guy that works 50 hours a week, nobody only works 50 hours a week in coaching, but you get the point. They all get paid the same to an extent. Like you're either there's really 2 ways to get to a real significant income in coaching. It's you either bet on yourself and you take a bad job and you rework the program as a head coach, at least you rework the program and then you get another shot, right? Like you kind of stair step your way up to getting another gig, or you can find a really, really good coach and you can kind of coattail them and, hey, I'm going to be your O-line coach. Then I'm going to be your run game coordinator, then your offensive coordinator, then your assistant head coach. And then eventually I get a head coaching job. And it's just like, man, like, I don't like this idea of I've got to renegotiate my salary every year. I've got to renegotiate or re-interview for all this. I want to do something that if I put in the work, I get paid for it. Or if I put in the work and I whatever value I bring to the table is what I'm getting paid. And sales is that to an extent.
Sure.
So I looked into, some avenues and looked into medical device sales and looked into some other stuff and ended up just falling into a advertising sales role. And hated it. Like, was there the very first day, immediately they flew us out to St. Louis for training for 2 weeks. And the very first day of training, after we finished training, I went back to my hotel and was already on Indeed, like looking for another job.
Whoa.
And it was, the main reason for it was,
I was going to ask,
someone in
why?
my class asked our trainer, who's our biggest competition? Who do you feel like is our biggest competitor? And our trainers like almost verbatim words where our CEO doesn't feel like we have competition because of the suite of products that we offer. And I was like, dude, I'm out. Amazon has competition. Like, what are you talking? Everybody has competition. And if you don't see it that way, like you've already lost, like everybody's trying to grow and improve and do something better. And if you're not doing that, I don't want to be a part of this. So I was there for about 7 months, just trying to find another gig. And I looked into, I wanted to do one of 2 things. I wanted to become a real estate agent and open my own real estate brokerage, or I wanted to go to barber school and open a barber shop. 2 wildly different things.
Wow.
Yeah, I loved the...
Are we going to post the photo of his long hair? You were the captain at South, right?
Yes.
And they had him on the program and everything. There's water falling from above.
Look at your email right now. I just sent you your text right now.
Oh,
That's funny.
Golly.
That's a long time.
Look at that right
Oh,
there.
there it is. Oh, that's not it. That's not the
I know,
one.
but look how beastly he looks
God,
right
it
there.
does look.
I got a better one I can
55?
show you it so much. Yeah.
55 in the lineman. That's a linebacker, right?
No, I liked the idea of the. I was 53 in high school, so
Okay.
they gave me 55, and it just kind of stuck.
Well, we were on a roll though. We were on a roll. You had the advertising gig, 7
Yes.
months. You were looking for something else. You just didn't believe in the product. You didn't believe in the
Not at all.
process. Okay.
Not at all. They still sold phone book advertising.
Oh,
and
geez.
The only time I've ever used a phone book in my life was in middle school, and I used it to call my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And the only reason I used that is because I knew her dad's name. So it's
Okay.
like, you could look up the name and you could call them based off that. And it was like,
Well,
man,
you
like,
really may not have had any competition. Nobody was still selling. Nobody was still selling.
That's a good
Nobody was
point.
still selling phone books.
Wow.
That's a good
Keith
point.
with the winner.
yeah, that's a good point.
Your CEO may have been right.
Yeah.
Like, we're just going to ride this ship to the end. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. It's coming back one of these days.
So yeah, and I'm going through that process, and I looked into those two avenues. My wife was like 8 months pregnant at the time.
Oh, no pressure.
Yeah, right. And we knew that we wanted her to be able to stay home with our daughter once she was born. It's like, man, like if I go into real estate or if I go into barbershop, like I'm literally going to make no money for the first at least 6 months. Like
Fair.
nothing's happening here. And we had just gotten out of college, so we've got no money sitting aside to be able to protect us from that, you know? And I was just like, man, this isn't going to work out. So my mentor called me one day, just out of the blue.
Who's your mentor?
His name's Mark Rudd.
Okay.
He was strongly involved in my life through college, man. Met him through college ministry and just discipled me through there and made a huge impact on my life.
Okay.
And he randomly called me one day and was like, hey man, I probably hadn't talked to him in like 6 months. And he's like, hey man, are you happy where you're working? And I was like, no, I'm actually looking for a job. And he's like, well, I know a guy that owns an insurance agency. He's looking for somebody to hire. Do you have interest? And I was like, I have zero interest in insurance, but out of respect for you, like I will go interview with this guy. Because I'd actually interviewed for an insurance gig, like kind of in that same time frame when I was working for the advertising role, and the guy was like trying to sell me his product. It was like
He wanted you to buy insurance.
yes,
Oh,
it was
wow.
like supplementary benefits type thing.
Oh,
it was
like Aflac kind of thing.
yes
Concept.
Ironically, that's exactly who it was, and they have a great product, and so
Yeah, I'm not.
don't sue us. But
not enough people listen to this to sue us. It's okay. And if you sued us, there's nothing really to have.
Yeah.
But it was
Like,
really
what are you
the
gonna say?
agent he was like trying to talk me into the product in the interview. And I was just like, dude, this is grimy. Like, I don't want anything to do with this. But again, like I said, out of respect for my mentor, I was like, I'm going to at least interview for this gig.
Sure.
And I met the guy that I ended up working for 2 years and was like, man, I don't care what I do. I want to work for this dude. Like, he just solid guy, just does things the right way, treats people well, does business the right way.
What is does things the right way and does business the right way? What does that mean to you?
That's a great question, man. I think that there's a level of character and a level of honesty and sincerity that you can see in someone's eyes when you
Okay.
talk to them. Like, does this person have my best intentions at heart, right? Like, are they going to rip me apart if I do something wrong, or are they going to sit me down and explain to me like, hey man, this just can't happen again.
Yeah.
And coming from a sports background, if you yell and scream at me, like, it's really not going to bother me that much, but you can feel that energy, if you will, from someone's intentions almost. On top of, I could just tell from the people that were in his office, like just meeting them and talking to them, it wasn't just, oh man, this is just the greatest place to work. They gave me honest opinion on, what insurance was, how it worked. Hey, this is a long game. You're not going to make, you're not going to make the amount of money that you want to make in this first year. It's going to take some time. You've got to build it. So I think just a level of like honesty and sincerity is like, if you're just going to paint a broad brush of
Fair
doing
enough,
things the
yeah.
right way, I think that those are the two things that really stuck out to me with him in that interview.
Which is insurance is a very intimidating industry anyway. As a consumer of it, I couldn't imagine going in and saying, is this what I'm going to make my life on?
Yeah.
Like, is this how I'm going to like feed my family? Because it's a very intimidating thing to purchase, much less sell. I couldn't imagine, especially not knowing.
Yeah, well, in all honesty, I didn't have a clue what it was like when I first got into it. I took the job because of my boss. Like, I was like, I just want to work for this guy. Like, I'll figure out the rest. And he told me the same thing because I asked him a few questions about insurance. He's like, dude, if you've got the intangibles, I can teach you insurance. Like, don't worry about that stuff. We can teach you what that was. We were talking about this off. I didn't know what a deductible was when I first got into insurance.
I was going to say it if you didn't.
Like, what is deductible? Like, what is subrogation? What is indemnification? You know, most people listen to this, unless they're an insurance agent, probably don't know those two words.
I've dealt with insurance enough to kind of know.
Yeah.
I kind of have to have a little bit of we spend a ridiculous amount.
Yeah. And, man, I loved working there. Like, it was such a good experience. Like, you know, there was a couple of times that just really stuck out to me. Like, I'd been there about 2 weeks, and I'd played a lot of pickup basketball and still do. And his son, he had an older son that I think he was like a junior in high school at the time, and they played some basketball, and he's like, hey, next time you play, invite me and my son. If we can make it, I'll come. I was like, great. Like, my boss is going to come play basketball. Let's go. So he comes and we play basketball. We get like 2 or 3 possessions in, and he's guarding me, and he's much smaller than me. Not much smaller, but it
doesn't take much to be much smaller than you.
I'm a year and a half out of college at this point, so I'm 290 still, you know, like I'm still a pretty big dude. And like 2 possessions go by because I'm just trying to feel out, like, how's he going to play? This is my boss. I don't want to be reckless here, but
let's not swing elbows.
Yeah, exactly. And I get the ball and, you know, pass it to somebody else, like from the paint. And he stops me in between possessions. He's like, I just want you to know, if you go soft to me, I will fire you on Monday. And I was like, this is my guy. Like, let's go. Like, I'm all in. Obviously he said it jokingly, but there was,
That's awesome.
the competition aspect of it. And there were some times that, like, I had one like really, really bad month in sales. Ironically, it was November. We're almost in November now. And this time of year is a little bit slower for insurance.
Yeah, no one's thinking about that.
And we're tied so closely to the housing market. Housing market typically slows down a little bit through this time too. So anyways, I had like the worst month that I'd ever had. And he came in and he sat down and he's like, hey, look, I just want you to know, you keep having months like this, I'm not going to make money. You're not going to make money. We got to change this. And he was like, everything ain't about money, but like, what can we do to help you here? And I was like, man, like, I just had a bad month. Like, I got cocky. I didn't continue to fill the pipeline. I wasn't like answering the phone. He's like, let's just not let it happen again. I was like, heard, understood.
Yeah.
You know, and there's some other ones in there, but those were the 2 main ones that just stuck out to me from him. And you talk about doing business the right way. And
addressing issues, you know where you stand.
Yes.
Being open and honest.
Yeah.
Giving
Setting
direction.
Expectations, right?
Setting expectations. We'll get there.
And he, anyways, I loved working for him, man. It was such a good experience for me. But I knew the itch to start my own business was, I'd been there about 9 months and that itch came back. It just wouldn't go away. So I tried to scratch it with a good friend of mine from South reached out to me and asked me to start doing some radio broadcasting with him. So I was like, okay, cool. Like, this will be fun. This can kind of scratch the itch of like, I want to do something else. Maybe this will, you know, help with that.
Is this what got you to be the voice of South Alabama Jaguars?
Well, I cannot take that title. That is definitely JT Crabtree. And he does a phenomenal job of it. And he makes being on the radio easy. Like, I'm not just saying that to blow smoke. Like, he is very, very talented.
Okay.
And he was my friend from school, and he had gotten offered a job finally to be full-time at South instead of being like student, intern, graduate assistant, all that. So I sent him a message on LinkedIn and was like, dude, congrats. It's about time they hired you. Like, holy cow. And he hit me back and was like, hey, you want to come on our pregame show? I was like, yeah, absolutely. Would love to. I was like, I've always kind of thought about, you know, ESPN type stuff would be fun. Like, sure. And we did that interview and he's like, dude, he's like, you should maybe come on a little bit more. I was like, okay, cool. Well, then they had something open up that they needed somebody on the radio broadcast. And he called me back and was like, hey, you want to do like a practice run? We'll sit and watch a recording of a game and you just do the color commentary. And if it's a fit and it meshes, we'll do it. I was like, okay, great. So sat down and did that. It went extremely well. And I've been doing the radio broadcast stuff with them since then. And anyways, I was hoping that was going to scratch that itch of wanting to do my own thing. And it did for that first year. So, you know, through the first fall, and then the January, February timeframe rolls around of 2019 and it just won't go away, man. Like, and I really wrestled with that. I wrestled with like, I don't want to just do something just to build a name for myself, right? Like that wasn't necessarily what I was looking to do. So I kind of wrestled with that internally, and from like, just from a faith-based perspective point, I was like, man, like I don't want this to all just be about me. It's like, is this just me being selfish? Like, I sought a lot of counsel, talked to my mentor about it on that, and did some research on it, and eventually came back to my wife, and I was like, you may not understand this analogy, babe, but I feel like there's chiefs and I feel like there's Indians. And she's like, oh, I'm an Indian for sure. She's like, I want you to tell me what to do and where to do it and how to do it. And that's all I want to do. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that's me. I was like, I like the idea of driving change, of moving something, of making decisions and so on and so forth. And she's like, yeah, I see that for sure. I was like, okay. I was like, do you, seeking some counsel from her, and she's encouraging me on like, yeah, if you want to do that, let's do it. So
typically those we individuals don't make very good employees anyway.
Right.
And so we better do our own thing, or we'll get moved out of the employee role pretty quick.
Yes.
That's kind of what happened to me.
Well, and it sounds like, and you've been painting the picture, I mean, even with the first sales job, you were looking for the right fit. You were looking for something you can believe in. You were looking for something that drives you and gets you up out of bed. You're not a check the box kind of guy. Oh, I'm just going to work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. You want to build something.
100%.
So, and I can relate.
Yes, I really struggled with. I worked at the YMCA for a little bit right out of college and was their sports director.
Okay,
and liked that, but I was an hourly employee, and after I would finish the work, which I would get done in 2 hours of the 5 hours I was supposed to work, I'm like, dude, I can't just sit here. Like, this is awful. So I would just leave, and my wife's like, you kind of need to work because we kind of need to get paid. But I was like, I've already done everything. I don't want to just sit here. Like, I can't just sit on the clock and do nothing. So I've kind of always struggled with that to some extent. But yeah, so that itch came back, man, and it just wouldn't go away. So I looked into some avenues, looked into a good buddy of mine offered me a gig to come on board with him. And eventually basically I could buy my book of business from him and move on. And the timing just wasn't right. It didn't work out. My wife just wasn't fully on board with it. Which is, I told her from the beginning when we were looking at starting something, I was like, look, we've got to make this decision together. Cause if we don't, like, you hear all the stories of businesses and how that can just really a business, you kind of are married to your business to some extent. So if, you can't serve two masters. So.
It is a bit of an extension of the family.
Yes, very much so. And she just wasn't on board with it. So I got a little frustrated about it and was like, okay, I'm going to take a step back. And then I had some peace that this isn't the right time too. So said no to that. And then got a chance to branch out and start the thing on my own. Had a couple of business partners to get me started to get going with that, to get it up off the ground and running and whatnot. But that kind of leads us up to, getting to that point of getting the business started. So
why is it called LTN?
So it stands for love thy neighbor. It's biblical principle off of, you shall love your neighbor as yourself, right?
Okay.
Like our purpose, from the EOS standpoint, our purpose is we exist for the purpose of loving and serving others through insurance. And that's it. Like that's what we're here for, is to help do that.
I got you. And isn't it funny how you fell into insurance and then fell into that sort of purpose right there and fell into your own business and all that stuff? Didn't even care about business.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't even care about insurance.
Yeah. It
just
is.
wanted to build your own thing.
It's funny how timing and how, I wouldn't necessarily call it luck. Like, I think that
there's probably none of that, but there's probably just, maybe it's kind of trying to be in tuned and listening, to the time in your heart and everything else, and just, taking the opportunity when it comes up. Having a mentor really helped.
Yes. One of my favorite passages or verses of scripture is Proverbs 16:9. That says, the heart of a man plans his ways, but the Lord establishes his steps. And like my life, if you look back on it, it's 100% that verse.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely had plans and thought that it was going to go a certain way. And it was like, no, that's not happening.
It's never, man.
If you look at my life today, the plans that I had, none of them are the way that I thought they would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would have sold myself short every time.
Every time I would have sold myself.
I would have sold myself short.
Oh, I did. Like if I look at the plans that I had when I started what I'm doing today, and it's far greater than anything I could have ever even dreamed of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So now you're in business. You come and see me, and I slap you on the wrist about making money.
Which was a very good, much needed slap.
Well, and I come from a little bit of PTSD of going completely broke. So if you're in that game, I'm like, let me help you learn from my experience. You don't ever want to be here. You're married, you got kids, and it's just it's terrible going broke when you got a wife that did not sign up for that. And you got kids, they didn't sign up for that either. I'm supposed to be the guy, and and there was a time that I didn't. I don't want you to feel that. So then now you're into insurance, and let's start talking about that a little bit. It seems like you're selling a seemingly commoditized product that you can't see or touch. How do you approach that? And this is where, thank you for the bio. And that was a freaking great story. But now to sort of shift to our audience, one thing I want them to learn is you do a really good job of selling standing out. This is what I know. You and I have done some business together, and I've told you this, quite a few times. I hope you've heard me. Is like, man, it's really done differently, and it's done really well. And I've never seen anyone approach selling insurance other than the cookie cutter kind of let's meet, let's go over the whatever, blah blah blah, and then that stuff. And you did a really good job with that. So where does that come from? How are you getting that? Where's that idea? You just take it from there.
Yeah. Well, one, I really appreciate you saying that. That means a lot for sure. I think that comes from, I'm naturally a really curious person. Like, I just like learning about stuff, and I just like learning just in general, whatever it may be about. And I think that when I first got into insurance, I realized, like, for lack of better terms, man, insurance is really stale, male, and pale. Like, it's my vision of it was pleated khakis, glasses down to here, and a sloppy button up.
Yeah, Jake from State Farm.
Yeah, well, the new Jake from State Farm is kind of cool, but
yeah. But the original one,
the original one is 100%. Yeah, exactly.
Khakis,
exactly. And you would be surprised at how accurate that depiction is of an insurance agent.
I would not be surprised.
Of them, right?
I would not.
Most of them are just like. Then they focus on the price. They focus on, Geico's done such a good job of the 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on car insurance.
I mean, it's a great deal.
It's great. It's
a great marketing effort.
Yes, slogan. But it sends this message of everything's about price, and it all circles around the whole price conversation. And it's like, man, like, I just kind of, I guess inherently knew, like, I'm just by nature a quality over quantity person. Like, I want a few things that are really, really nice over a lot of things that are really, really cheap. And insurance was kind of the same way for me. It's like, man, like, if I start this relationship and this conversation on price, it's always going to be based on price. Like, that's all that they're ever going to want to talk about.
All right, listener, say this one more time, and I just want the audience to listen to that one more time, and just repeat that one more time. So if you start the relationship on price, say it again.
If you start the relationship on price, it always revolves around price. That's what the whole relationship's going to be about.
And that's not what you want it to be when you're selling anything.
Correct.
What do you want it to be?
Correct. I want it to be based on trust. Like, ultimately, that's what I'm selling somebody is trust, is that I'm going to educate you on what is the right decision, whether it helps me or whether it hurts me. If that decision is you going with me or going with Jake from State Farm, that's great, man. I'll call you back in a year, and hopefully we get a shot at it again then. But there's times that it's like, man, somebody else's product may be better than what we're able to offer. And if they are, that's okay. Like, in a commoditized, like, if I quote somebody's home insurance and mine is $2,000 higher than somebody else, like, obviously we're talking about prices, you can't start the relationship on price, but price is important. Like, you got to be in the ballpark.
They're going to make some decisions based on price.
Correct.
But so I want to go back. Sorry, Keith, go ahead.
But I'll be real honest with you. If I think about myself, I've never checked the prices on my insurance. I gave it to the person that explained it the best.
Exactly.
And because, like we talked about, insurance is so scary when it comes to if my house blows down, who pays, what pays, how does it pay,
And I think that, and I was even going to say, selling anything freaking ice cream sandwiches, landscape services, God, creative people with your digital marketing or your websites. No one really understands your business like you do. No one really understands insurance. And we say insurance is a good thing for us to sort of highlight, but no one understands landscaping. Like no one, and listen, no one cares about the cation exchange of soil. You know, most people don't even know that that's a thing, right? Well, we're kind of concerned about that. We're concerned about, you know, is there 6 inches of drainage underneath your artificial turf before we get all that stuff? Mm-hmm. They don't really care about that. They just want to know that you know that and you're going to solve their problem for them. But you've got to get to that point by building rapport, and that builds trust. And I think you do a pretty good job of that by leading with service as the motive instead of sales as the motive.
That's it.
And so you can see it almost like the person you were talking about. What does doing things the right way mean? Well, it means that you're genuinely, and you can see it in their words, their actions, their tone of their voice, that they genuinely care and they're genuinely trying to serve you. And it doesn't seem artificial or made up in any way. Mm-hmm. You know,
it's like, I heard a guy say this one time and it stuck with me forever. He's like, man, I'll fight tooth and nail to get in front of a client, but as soon as we're in front of them, I'm completely open-handed. It's like, man, like what's going to be best for you as the client in this situation? And that's what I want, whether that's with me or whether that's with somebody else. Because at the end of the day, in any business, what you're doing is solving a problem. Like you said, like somebody's coming to you, they may not understand that it's a problem, but that's what's going on is they have a problem and want you to solve it.
I need insurance. That's a problem. Yep. I know I need to have it. One, if I'm going to have a loan. Two, I don't know what's coming around the corner, you know, and I need some peace of mind. I don't want to spend too much, but I know I need and I don't know enough, you know, do I need an umbrella policy? Do I need this? Blah, 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 blah. Right? And so the person that explains it the best, and what does the best mean? The person that I believe and I trust that they're telling me the right thing. It's got to be a combination of competency and combination of genuine care. I'm sorry. That's how I sort of equate trust.
Yeah, I agree.
I know that you know your business, and then I know that you're looking out for me.
That's it.
And that's what the listener needs to hear, I think.
Agreed.
Everyone's in sales, whether you're trying to get someone on board with something, or you're actually trying to sell a product, or you're trying to get them to do something you need them to do. You got a certain amount of influence, and you're in sales.
Yes.
So sorry, we sort of ranted on that.
That's great.
But you do a good job with that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I wanted to be different intentionally because you see so much of the opposite of what we're talking about in our industry.
It ends up just being a numbers game. How many people can you touch? How many blah, blah, blah. And then it just turns, you know, and you lose the efficacy of the sales call. You know, your closing ratio starts going down and down, and you got to work harder and harder.
Yes. One of the things that drives me the most nuts that we see in our industry constantly is when an insurance agent sends a client a quote and just says "see attached."
Oh yeah.
It's like, dude, they don't have any idea what 25% ERC means.
I do not.
No clue, right? They don't have any idea what subform endorsement 4056A means, right? Like they have no clue.
And I'm not reading it.
Right. I'm not reading it.
Yeah.
And outside of like wanting to know that now from an insurance standpoint, it's like, I'm not going to look at that. And it's like, man, if that's all that you say, you've set the expectation for them. Hey, I want to be the cheapest here, handle this and go for it. Right. And it's like, man, like, you know, we've talked about this a few times. Like our number one core value is we don't sell, we educate.
Right.
Like the whole goal is to educate someone and help them make a good qualified decision. That's it. Everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah. And it sort of ties right in with, and I've mentioned this a ton of times, but Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough people get what they want, ultimately you'll get what you want. It's the same concept. Put enough good out in the world, you get good back.
100%. And people can smell commission breath. Like if you are just trying to sell something.
All motives have a smell.
100% they do, man. And it's like, if you just get in front of someone and you just want to serve them and just make sure that whatever happens is the right fit for them, like plenty of good's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, it may take longer, it may take more time, but you're going to feel a lot better at the end of the day if that's the way you do it too.
So let's talk a little bit. So number one, you were wanting to be unique by selling a seemingly commoditized service. I keep saying that because that's in my mind. I'm like, man, it seems like insurance is insurance, but I've dealt with it enough that it's not really.
Right.
Especially if you got a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of things. There's some loopholes there that I gotta shore up, and then there's lots of other things going on that someone can come after, and I need to kind of make sure that I'm covered, right? So it's not the same, and it's not always the cheapest price. But you incorporated technology to sort of help you to not say "see attached" or throw a bunch of words on the email. So what did you do?
Right. We use a platform and a software called Loom, and there's plenty of other ones out there. I think that we heard it at Energy. There's one called Scribe or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's a screen recording software that I can basically give someone a presentation like we're on the phone without being on the phone.
Yeah, there's a video, there's audio, and I'm going through the screen with you.
Yep.
Plugged in to the quote right there, and you did it in about a minute,
Yep. And the whole reason behind that is I'm busy, you're busy. We all three run our own businesses. It's like, man, most of the time when you're probably looking at something like that, it's probably 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. I'm gone and at the off, I'm with my kids too at that point.
100%.
And
8
it's
o'clock.
like nobody wants to answer the phone at that point and talk about insurance. Like, I don't want to answer the phone and talk about insurance at 7:30 at night. So I know that somebody else doesn't want to. So it gives them the whole, goal behind that was, man, I want to put this, one, I want to educate people, but two, I want to put this in their hands, in the client's hands for when they want to have access to it. Like I can't stand, and if any real estate agent is listening to this, I'm sorry, but I cannot stand when real estate agents have on their website that if you go to look at pictures, it only lets you look at 3 pictures, then you have to input your email address. It makes me so mad because I'm like, man, like if somebody you can add cookies to the website or whatever to where you can ping them afterwards. Don't force me to give you it makes me exit out of it immediately because I'm like, man, like I want it to be frictionless. I want it to be easy for somebody to do business with us, and because if it's not, they're going to go elsewhere. That's why Amazon's so successful is because it's
what
easy.
a capitalist you are,
Well, I think it goes back to this, and I heard you mention, and I've got to cue in on, I heard you mention 10X is easier than 2X. And they talk about unique ability in that book a lot. And I think what I'm hearing is to be what you need to be in business, whatever you do, you've got to really understand the unique ability that you have to the market that you're in. And it sounds like you've done that really well.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that.
That's a good point.
I mean, it's, definitely trial and error. When I first got into insurance, it wasn't that. It was, I had to learn from like, man, I got so tired of somebody being like, man, this isn't cheap enough. Man, this isn't that. And it's like, price is important. It just can't be number one. It can't be the thing. If you just start with, hey man, I can save you a bunch of money. The next time somebody else can save them a bunch of money, they're gone.
Yeah.
But if it's, a few $100s difference, or depending on the size of the policy, if it's a few $1,000 difference and you've explained everything and they know and understand like, hey, there's a gap in coverage here. Yeah. If you take that cheaper option, it's going to save you $4,000 this year, but you're also at liability for this, and this potentially not being covered.
Sure.
If you lead with price, you just don't understand your product well enough, typically.
Or you just haven't thought through how you present your product well enough to your potential customer.
You don't understand your unique ability.
Yeah, you're just kind of mailing it in. Maybe, I don't know. I hate saying that because sometimes people have to compete on price, but I don't think so near as much as people think.
I don't think so either.
I think there's only a few things where you really have to compete on price.
Walmart, perhaps.
Yeah.
In their, a juggernaut, they can probably do that. They built up to do that.
Yeah, like Gain laundry detergent. Like that's, what's the difference in that?
I don't know.
They can't explain and educate the clients on their product outside of pumping a bunch of money onto advertising.
Right.
Because if it's just on a shelf, like, okay, great. What's the difference between these two? Like, I'm not going to take the time to read the whole back label most of the time. It's like, well, this one's $4 less than this one. I'm probably going to go with that one.
Right.
So you mentioned a couple of times, setting proper expectations. Tell me a little more about that. Like, why is that important? We already talked about, not selling on price, and that's probably part of setting the expectations. But like, why is that important, and how do you set them?
One of my favorite quotes is the biggest misconception about communication is that it actually happened.
Is that George Bernard Shaw?
I don't know.
It is.
I don't know.
Let me just tell you.
Well, George Bernard Shaw, I owe you a lot of money because
he's going to look it up over there.
I've used that.
I know it is because we've looked that up before.
Yeah, I send that quote out a lot.
It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. And it's because, man, like if you don't say something like no, there's expectations there no matter what, whether you've set them or whether you haven't. It's similar to like, people talk about culture a lot. And it's like, well, your business has a culture, whether you have put a name to it or not. The client, you have expectations. I have expectations walking into this podcast of what this is going to be, right? Or same thing, I've listened to it a few times, so I know what's going on with it. But if you don't set expectations, it's like, man, there's so much gray area that things can happen. And that applies to parenting, to dang sure applies to marriage. Like,
oh man, I was about to say the overlap.
I'm glad you go ahead and
hit it. Overlap in all that.
Yeah,
it applies in every area, especially in marriage.
Like
there's so many things I think I've told my wife that I probably haven't. And I tell her I've told her, but then she says no, not heard that before. So
yeah. So. I guess it starts with having, again, a genuine desire to communicate well to make sure that we're on the same page. And in sales, that comes from a genuine desire to be helpful, you know? And, so setting expectations, what anything else on the sales process, on being unique, anything like that?
Yeah, I think one of the other biggest things that I see a lot in our industry is like, people don't follow up, which is just crazy.
Okay. Let's talk about that for the salespeople that are listening.
That's where you make your money.
Yeah.
Is follow up. Like that's where everything happens is in the follow up.
Talk to me about that process.
So for us, like we have it automated in our CRM system that's going to ping you and tell you when to follow up with the client.
When do you follow up?
We typically are going to follow up between 2 and 3 days, like after the quote. There's some circumstances, like if I know that, hey, they're not closing on this house for 60 days or something like that, we're going to give it a little bit more time because I know that they're not looking at that insurance right now. Okay. But generally speaking, like I don't have some scientific, platform or anything like that that's told me that 2 to 3 days is the magic number. That's just what we've seen from our numbers. The CRM
just already go ahead and plugs it in.
Yeah, we
set it for that.
We set it for that intentionally for like, hey, just want to get back in front of them because being the first person to get there is really important because it's going to give you the opportunity to explain something, and they're probably, they've heard from 3 other insurance agents that day. So it's like, if you're the last one, there's pros and cons to each, but for us, like they say it takes an average of 7 touches before a sales happens. And it's like before a sale happened. That's tough to,
it is tough to say. I'm with you though. Everyone's following.
Yes. So, man, I tell any new agent that has ever come on board with us, I'm like, man, you are going to make your commission on the follow-up. That's it. Like the likelihood of you having a 1-call close in insurance is non-existent for the most part. Like every now and again, you'll have somebody call in that's a current client that's like, hey, I moved here from Wisconsin and hey, I need to get my autos insured down here. Can you get this handled right now? Yeah, here's a quote over the phone. Okay, it's done. But that's 1 out of every 100 max, most of the time it's, somebody's probably calling us and they're probably calling 1 to 2 other agents because that's what most people tell you to do is, you should get at least 2 quotes or something like that. Sure. Like if you've got a current agent or whatever. But anyways, everything's made in the follow-up, man. Like that gives you opportunity, one, for somebody to see like, hey, you actually want their business.
You actually care enough to follow up. Mm-hmm.
And I'm big on like, there's a couple of things for me that like if somebody's on board with us that will get them fired really quickly. And one is lying. Like if you lie about something, it's like in anything, it's like, hey dude, you're gone. Like just
what's an example of a lie?
If somebody's like, hey man, I told the client X, Y, and Z, but go back and look at a phone recording. It was actually this, this, and this. If they just blatantly lie about coverage or like lie to get something done, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like we probably don't have a lot. Like, hey, you took that shovel off the job site. We don't run into that like you guys would. Yeah. But something simple like that.
Just blatantly dishonest.
Is like, man, this just isn't going to work because that's not our model, right? Like that's not loving and serving others through insurance. If you're lying to them, like obviously you don't love them and want to serve them. Yes.
That's not love. That's loving yourself and your commission.
Exactly. And then the second thing to me is hard sales. Like if you're just on the phone with somebody and like, hey, this is the deal of the day. You got to get this done today. Like, I just don't like that. I don't like that sales approach. I think it pushes people to it forces them to make a decision rather than allowing them to make a decision. And I think that there's a big distinction between those two things.
Okay. Anytime someone feels forced into a decision, they regret it later.
Exactly. So for us, it's like, man, our follow-up is always going to be open-handed in a, hey, man, do you have any questions on this? Was there anything else that popped up here? And then if they're like, obviously there's different scenarios that may pop up that you should ask for the business. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. But if, you call somebody and, hey, man, just wanted to follow back up on this. Did you have any questions? No, man, I really didn't have any questions. You could easily just say something to the extent, well, look, if you want to move forward with this, here's the steps to do so. So you're taking the thinking process out of their hands. And okay, I didn't realize that. Let me send this to my mortgage lender. Bam, we're done.
And prompting them for the sale.
Exactly.
But not like saying, hey, we got to act now.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. There's a difference in those two things.
People like options. They don't like to be sold.
That's it.
I like to have options. I don't want to be, sold anything.
I'm big on story brands stuff too with Donald Miller. And
you're the guide.
I'm the guide. They're the hero of this story. They're the one making the decision. I'm just here to help you decide on which route to go.
Love it. Love it. Keith, you got anything on the sales process as the sales guru of the Overlap podcast?
No. Have you read Go for No?
I have not.
I'm
reading Fanatical Prospecting right now.
Yeah. So Go for No is a great book. We're gonna. I'm not gonna get into it too much because we need to redo it. We need to do it on the. I like it because of that. It made me feel smart. I read it all in one sitting.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Go into my Amazon cart right now.
There we go. But there's one little thing that I think we just sort of breeze past, and so I know. Were you the best man in Joe's wedding?
I was not. We were both. We were groomsmen in each other's wedding. Yes.
So he tells me, and other people, Coach V told me, you're like, man, that guy could have played in the NFL. Why'd you not go in the NFL?
Man, that's a great question.
We just sort of I figured you didn't go there, and I'm like, I made myself a little note. We'll come back to that.
Yeah, to be honest with you, man, I fell out of love with football.
Okay.
My senior year, I was just done. I was burnt out, and football is one of those things that and I'm like this just naturally as a person. If I'm not all in on something, I'm out.
Selling advertisement for phone books.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly. One of my favorite interview questions is asking someone, if the person closest to you were here, why would they say you might fail? And my answer to that is, if I'm not all in, I'm going to fail. I'm a 100% in or 100% out kind of person.
Okay.
And the other part of that too was, man, I got out of football, no real injuries. I had one minor concussion that scared me to death. I watched the whole CTE documentary afterwards and was like, do I want to risk not being able to talk straight when I'm 45 or play with my kids? And that doesn't happen to everybody. But
kill yourself by shooting yourself in the chest so you could conserve your head so they could study it.
Right.
Not that that's ever happened.
Right. And it just scared me, man. And it just kind of got to a point to where I was like, man, this just is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. I don't love it anymore. I love competition. You put me in any form of ring. If it's tic-tac-toe, I want to win. Chess, whatever. But I fell out of love with the sport of football.
Was it the grind? Was it the lack of I don't know. What was it? Can you just put your finger on it?
I can't necessarily put my finger on one specific thing other than kind of a little bit of the fear of concussions and fear of that. It wasn't necessarily fear of injury.
Just thinking the long game.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a vegetable or
and the likelihood of that happening is really, really low for the most part. But it's
risk
a real
reward.
thing.
Yeah, it's a real damn thing.
Yes, because if I'm being completely honest, realistically, I think that my NFL life would have looked like, hey, man, I could have probably bounced around for 5 years, maybe got drafted in the 5th or 6th round, played on a team for a couple of years, got cut, practice squad, up to active, practice squad, and it's like, man, do I want to, you can go make a really decent living doing that, but I'm going to have to travel
if you were going to be a
around.
coach, there you go. You know?
Exactly.
That would have been the thing. You know, my time in the NFL. You know.
Yes, and I fell out of love with it, man.
Okay.
It was a great experience. I loved it. I loved playing next to Joe, man. That's my brother. Like,
I love
we had
that
a great
guy.
experience.
We
Yes.
have a relationship, and we have a relationship kind of like the way you said, because you connected me with him. He recruited my son out to where he's at, and he calls and checks on me. And now I had lunch with his dad the other day. You know, I mean, we're buddies now. I love that guy. There's no way you can't love that guy.
You can't, for sure. He and I have this pipe dream of, if he ever becomes a head coach, he's going to hire me to be his recruiting coordinator. And I'm like, I'm just going to move wherever you're at for a couple of years. So
yeah,
hopefully that's to the point to where I've gotten LTN to where I can take a little bit of a step back.
That was the other thing I was going to say. Like, well, I guess you're just busy building your business. But I was like, you're not doing any coaching, no high school coaching, huh? Offensive line, defensive line, nothing, huh?
I thought about doing, if I
St.
was going to do
Michael's
that.
is probably hiring a little bit. you know, if not, I could probably figure that out.
Yeah.
Not that never mind.
You got some connections.
I do not know. I actually don't.
One of their coaches is a good friend of mine from college, Kai Lopez.
Oh man,
So
I love that guy.
He's we were good friends in college, but man, honestly, it's the schedule of it is like
it's brutal.
I could do one-on-one coaching. I would love that. I love watching film, like breaking down. That's probably why I like broadcasting, is because that's kind of what you're doing. But sitting and watching a football game, and like if you can get the back shot where it shows, you know, basically from the end zone, cut, like that's how we watched all of our film. It's like, man, like I could sit and watch that for a day and a half probably. I just like film, but the idea of, I'm just soft now, I guess. The idea of standing out there in the sun for 2.5 hours every day and just getting roasted and I could do one-on-one training. I would do that. But
lineman summer camp.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, I could maybe do that. We'll make sure it's indoors and AC'd, and I'm kidding.
Well, do you well, I don't know if it's AC there.
No, it's not.
Keith, those were my questions. What do you got?
I think we've covered everything, man.
Yeah. I'm really
the sales process is.
That's a good one.
He's really
good at it, man.
Yeah.
He's got it down. He's got it. Yeah. That training in St. Louis really helped, I think.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. That was a fun experience. It taught me what not to do.
There
I learned
you go.
a lot of what not to do.
Well, that's the best way to learn.
Yeah.
I've actually been thinking a lot about it, and I'm so glad you talked about having your, looking at it looking at your industry differently, because that's what it takes, and understanding the ability that you have that's different from the status quo. And I think that people need to understand that more than ever today in this kind of market, is find your ability that you have that's unique and then cue in on that. And, we talk about it all the time, and I think it's rare to understand that and then backfill the weakness. Mm-hmm. And so you don't have to do as a leader, and I think that EOS kind of points this out better than anything, is as a leader, you don't have to do everything, and you shouldn't really be doing everything. But understanding where you fit in the market that's very unique, and then cueing in on that.
That's so one of my favorite basketball players of all time is Dennis Rodman, and it's not because of the antics. It's not because he was crazy.
I kind of like all those. To be real honest with you, it's fun to watch.
But one of my favorite things about him is I've seen this stat line on him that he had 20 rebounds and 0 other stats in a game, and he was just a guy that knew his role and played it to 100%. And I'm like, man, there's something about that just fires me up. Of like, he was comfortable enough in himself. This is my role. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it extremely well.
And the overlaps there is huge. Just understanding your role in every area that you have or that you put yourself in is so important.
And he was humble enough to just play that part, Yeah.
That's another
even
one of my
for
favorite.
the Pistons.
Yeah, even for the Pistons.
Yes.
He was humble enough.
We'll take out the San Antonio piece where he kind of had
he went a little nuts.
He went a little crazy there, but I think it's Winston Churchill that said this quote. My high school coach said this to me, and it just stuck with me for forever. But walk softly and carry a big stick is like one of my favorite quotes. Just walking humbly, but knowing like, hey man, if I've got to get the job done, I can get the job done. I think applies to so much of what you just said. And we're probably going to pull this quote up, and I'm going to be
Theodore Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt.
I always
Almost.
get
Speak
Kind of the
softly,
same.
speak softly,
Yeah.
and
Speak
carry a
softly.
big stick.
That's it.
You will
I know
go
it was him
far.
or Churchill, but yeah, it's speak softly and carry a big stick. You will go far. Is that's
You
what
will
it
go
is?
far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that a lot, man, because it's know your role, but know, and like people know, especially if you're a business owner, like people know if you're the boss, like they know and understand that, and you can carry, that weight in a room, but you don't need to throw that around.
No,
Like,
and people who are confident don't throw it around.
correct.
They just live it.
Well, yeah, and in leadership, you can have compliance by barking rules, or you can have influence. And I want people to do what I want, what needs to be done because it's the right thing to do, and they've been taught, they've been led, not because they're worried. I don't want them to do it out of fear, and it's just not sustainable. I'm playing the long game, So there we go, man. This is good.
This was awesome.
I hope the listeners really kind of honed in on that, because I do think, and this is what we were talking about before, Chris, is that setting proper expectations in the sales process is crucial. And I think we miss that all the time because we're too focused on getting the close or selling services or products. We're focused on that, and setting proper expectations is great. And then not selling on price is kind of wrapped into that, So leading with a desire to establish trust is probably the way to set the proper expectations, and then serving instead of selling.
We talked about this. I got to give my wife a shout out here.
I was going to end with this. I'm glad you're doing it.
That she, building that trust and building rapport with people is so important, especially.
Let's back up though,
Yeah, go
because
right
you
ahead.
and I were talking about how we hate small talk, and we were going back and forth. I was like, oh, my brother over here, because I don't mingle well. Like I don't go to chamber events, and I don't go to like conferences well. I'm getting the information, and I'm looking for like tangible returns on that time invested, and I'm really interested in the knowledge, but I'm not interested in making a friend in Indianapolis that I'll never see again. But I didn't really equate it this way. And your wife, you said your wife kind of changed your life on this. And my wife is actually just very similar to your wife. We can't get them together because they'll never shut up. But maybe we should either way. But what'd she say?
Yeah, so we're very similar, cut from the same cloth there. I think that's probably why we connected.
I wish I was 6'4", but
you walked in yesterday at the energy meeting and you were like, hey, so where are you at? How's this going? And I was like,
boom.
Awesome. Like, I'm in, let's talk about this. But so when my wife and I first got married, my wife is like just social butterfly, man. Like could talk to anybody, build a relationship with them, and know their life story in 5 minutes. Like she genuinely has a gift at
Does
doing
that sound like Jordan, Keith?
It does, very much so.
And she has really deep friendships really quickly. And I just, every time we would go somewhere, somebody would be like, hey, how are you doing? Kind of the standard Sunday afternoon church questions. And you could just read it all over my face that I was frustrated. I'm like, I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah.
And, I was just remember talking to my wife, and her, she's like, why don't you do that? And I'm like, I don't like small talk. Like I want to talk about important stuff. Like what's going on? Where's their business at? How are they doing this? And she stopped me and she said, Chris, small talk leads to big talk. She's like, you're never going to get to the point of having those big conversations with everybody unless you get some of the small talk into the conversation.
That is so freaking brilliant. I had to stop and write it down in my book, and then I put it on a sheet of paper in my office. I was like, and I told him after the meeting, I was like, dude, you rocked my freaking world. Tell your wife, thank you very much.
Yeah, you just got some brownie points.
Yeah,
too.
well,
we're going to pull that sound clip out.
I'm definitely sending that to her.
But
I
I want to say it one more time. What did she say?
She said, small talk leads to big talk.
God, that's so brilliant, man.
And it's so true, man. That is one of the things that, like, her and I sat down and kind of talked a little while back, and we're talking about like, what do you feel like's different since we've been married, right? Like what has changed in you? Because if you ever read anything by Timothy Keller, he's like one of my, he's like a hero in my life. Like, and he's got a book called The Meaning of Marriage. And he's got a quote in there that says basically something to the extent of, my wife's been married to 8 different men, or has lived with 8 different men since we've been married. And I've been all 8 of them, basically saying like, hey, I've changed over time. So in that same thread, my wife and I are talking about that. And I was like, honestly, one of the biggest things that I think has changed in my life since we've been married is that her teaching me that of like, you just got to have some small talk sometimes. You've got to build rapport. You've got to build relationship, because not everybody's cut like us that can just dive straight in and like, I want to talk about that. I want to be confronted. Like, that doesn't bother me. It's probably from a sports background.
I think it's a sports background.
It definitely, I think it is. Yeah.
It's a sports background where like we have a freaking goal to achieve.
Yep.
Let's go.
And back to, I listened to y'all's episode about the Enneagram. So I'm a 3 and similar. I know that 3 and 8s are similar in that aspect of like, man, I want to dive in and go. Like, if you yell at me and tell me I'm doing something wrong, I want that. Like, I
actually work harder.
Yes. Yeah. I want confrontation.
Yeah.
Most people don't. So like learning when to kind of pull on that string was tough for me in the beginning, because I'm a pusher. Like, I want to go, I want to run, I want to move quickly.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to learn to slow down a little bit.
Man, that's so good. And really, I do want deep and meaningful relationships, but I just never thought of it the same way. I'm 44 years old and I never heard of it that way. I never thought of it that way, of you're never going to get to the deep and meaningful conversations until you first have the small ones. And I'm like, God dang.
Because what does the small ones do?
It builds rapport. It builds trust.
Absolutely. And you have to build trust.
Well, tying it back, it sets the expectation of, I'm not just trying to get to the point.
Yeah, this isn't a transactional relationship.
It's not transactional.
And that's what I hate, transactional relationships that seem fake. And I think I've always been I didn't like Milli Vanilli. I make fun of, we've been listening to a lot of Nickelback at the gym. I know you haven't been there as much, Keith.
Yeah, but
we've been playing a lot of that. And all
I'm
really trying to do is wind people up. But the reason people don't like it, because it sounds like ChatGPT created it, Although you can kind of jam to it a little bit.
Oh.
If you don't sing along with Rockstar, you're lying.
The same with Creed.
Yeah, Creed. Same
anybody
thing.
can sing Creed. I like Creed.
It all seems like ChatGPT created rock and roll, when there was really Pearl Jam and Stone Temple Pilots and all those other folks. This is before Chris. And you're like, God, that was
Pearl
real.
Jam is. I don't know the other one.
Oh my God.
The Stone Temple Pilots. Put them in.
Yeah, Alice in Chains and freaking Soundgarden. That was
Alice in Chains.
It was real stuff.
Do y'all know who J. Cole is?
Yes,
I do know who J. Cole is. J. Cole's pretty awesome,
my favorite
actually.
rapper.
But
is he your favorite?
By far.
Yeah,
I like J. Cole a lot.
By far.
Is it my favorite rapper? Yeah, probably. I don't know.
He tells a story.
He does tell a great story.
With his music. And
He's
that's
good.
why
Yeah,
I like
it's good.
Speaking of Tim Keller, though, did you read Reason for God?
I think I read half of it. I haven't read the whole thing.
It's deep,
so
dude.
It is a phenomenal book.
But it's a phenomenal book, but it's deep. And it's very academic.
Ooh, Counterfeit Gods.
That was the first
Generous
book.
Justice.
Counterfeit Gods was the first book I read when I became a Christian. That
Meaning
was the
of
very
Marriage.
first one. Every Good Endeavor is the book that I read as I was transitioning from farmer to starting LTN, that just gave me such a different perspective of work and such a different perspective of how I worked. I haven't read one of his books that I haven't.
This is great. I'd never heard of this guy. Is that shocking?
He passed away earlier this year.
That's what I saw on his website.
Yes, and I was listening to a podcast. It's called the Faith Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. It's a really good podcast. And his son, somebody was talking to his son about it, and he basically had a quote on his deathbed that his son was, upset that obviously he's passing. He had terminal cancer, I believe. And Tim Keller basically said something to the extent of like, son, like it's okay that I'm leaving. Like, I've finished my race. And it's like, oh my gosh, dude, that gives me chills like thinking about that. But yeah, he's like a hero in my life, man.
Yeah.
Big Tim Keller fan.
Every Good Endeavor. God's wisdom for navigating life. That sounds.
I have that on my desk right now, actually.
The Songs of Jesus is great too.
The Meaning of Marriage sounds pretty fantastic.
It's get ready to get punched in the face when you read that one for sure. That is a great one.
All right. Maybe I'll order that. All right. Well, hey, thanks for being on, man. I think this is a long time coming. And those were some real golden nuggets of wisdom that I hope our audience wrote some notes down. And I think we say it every episode. We're really trying to provide value from a local standpoint, local people doing really good work, working hard, trying to do the right things and learning, as we go about our lives and our endeavors, So I hope you guys got something out of that. I hope you got a lot. I did. And I appreciate you being on, man.
I appreciate y'all having me, man. I think that you guys hit the nail on the head with what your goal is with the podcast. I've genuinely been listening to it for over a year. So I think you guys do a great job and provide a lot of value.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Tell us where you write business, though. And you write in several states, right?
I do. It just depends. It depends on the risk. We can do anything for the most part in the state of Alabama. There's some stuff that we say no to just because we want to set proper expectations for clients and whatnot of like some stuff we're not good at. But the primary state that we write in is in the state of Alabama. If somebody reaches out to us outside of that, we have some markets for it, but 90% of what we do is in the state of Alabama.
Okay, cool deal.
And pretty much commercial driven.
Yes, that's that's the goal,
and that's really where the value is too, because there's so many moving parts.
Yep, that's it. So any professional services business, we have some really, really good markets for. We have some markets for specific types of contractors, but anything that's in a service or tech related industry, we've got some really good markets for them.
And you'll tell the client if you can't help. Yeah. I was in that boat.
Yes,
and
yes.
you're moving into you're getting started with the workman's comp stuff.
Yes, that's a big thing for me. I'm actually taking a course on that next week because like you and I were talking about. That's an area that I feel like we can really, really provide a lot of value because it's one of the most misunderstood lines of business that's out there. People don't know what a workers' comp mod is. You probably have no clue what that is.
No.
I know you know.
Well, I do.
You kind of have to.
Yeah, I do only because that was I used to sell workers' comp case management.
Oh,
yeah. So.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So.
But yes, we have made a shift more towards commercial, specifically with the intentions of being able to provide more value.
Yep. Well, sounds good. So LTN Insurance, they can find you online?
Yep. LTN or LTNINS.com is a website for us. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm on all that stuff. I'm not on Twitter or TikTok, but I'm on everything.
Why
else.
would you need to buy insurance on TikTok?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
LinkedIn probably. All right. Well, hey, thanks. Thank you for being on. Thank you to the listeners for tuning in. Man, I got a ton of value out of this. I hope you did too. Thank you to our sponsors. I hope you are supporting them. They are supporting us. They make this stuff possible because it is actually not free to put these things on, and they allow us to continue to do this. So please, please, please support our sponsors. And please, if you liked this episode, send it to a friend, man. Get it out to someone that may not have heard this and that might need to hear it. And that's kind of how this good news spreads. You all have been doing that because, we see the listeners and the downloads and the streams going up. So we really appreciate it. And you are helping us meet our goal. Like Chris said, man, we just want to be helpful in a small business setting because I think so much in the podcast sphere is that it's big business concepts, all slicked out and all well thought out and well produced and scripted. And then they're talking to, the leaders of Fortune 500 or Fortune 100 businesses, and they're talking concepts that just are hard to digest because you think, well, that's not for me. And we're trying to give you nuggets that are definitely for you. Big business, small business, medium-sized business. It's all actionable. Keith, anything else?
Hey, we dropped 2 emails last week. Our quarterly email went out, so our newsletter is finally going out. So go subscribe to the newsletter on the website, overlaplife.com. We've also opened up some more advertising spots. Our media partners on our website. So go do that.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so that sponsorship will be website only. You'll get your link there. Our traffic has exploded over the last couple months just because of the the reach of the podcast has gotten greater. So we've opened up some ad spots there. Also, you'll get your link on our site, your service offerings, and we'll guide people to you from there. So
sounds good. All right. Well, that's all I got. Again, thanks again, Chris, for being on. Thanks for the wisdom. Thank your wife, really, because she's the one that dropped the nugget.
She's special.
Man. She is special. I can't wait to meet her. And anything else, Keith?
that's it.
All right.
Peace.
Hey there. My good friend Steve Bousquet and his partner, Christine Era, the owners of Green Profit Academy, are super excited about a new product they've got coming out. If you didn't know, they're the authors of Profit First for the Lawn Care Business. And it's a book written by Christine Era. Steve plays a big role in sort of adding to that. But they've got that book. It's already out. But if you're an audiobook listener and you just learn better by listening, they've got the audio version coming out, and I think this is really cool. They've got Christine Era narrating the audiobook, and she does a really good job. I've heard some clips of it. It's pretty fantastic. And Mike Michalowicz, the original author of Profit First, he reads the foreword. And so they've got a book launch that's going to come out on their website, Green Profit Academy, and you should stay tuned for more information about that. They're going to have some giveaways. They're going to have some other special deals going on. But the book itself, the audio book, will come out September 12th. So please be on the lookout for that. And if you need some help with Profit First for your green industry business, please give them a call or look them up, Green Profit Academy. Thanks so much. Let me tell you about one of our sponsors, Chris Drogmiller. He's with CMD Fencing. One, I really appreciate his support to the podcast. He listens to the podcast, but long before that, he has done several projects for me at my home, at our business, and the dude just does an awesome job. One of the things I really like about him is it's basically just him and someone that helps him. His attention to detail is phenomenal. The work is always high quality. If you've ever had a fence built, you know that the gate itself and how it opens and shuts is kind of the stamp of quality. It always works well. I've made him make some interesting kind of fencing where it's all horizontal. He had no problems with that, did a great job. And the guy is freaking awesome. He's easy to work with, and he does a fantastic job. He's a firefighter, so he works 2 days on and 2 days off. So he comes in and knocks my project out on the days that he's off. And the dude's awesome. You can find him on our website, overlaplife.com. You can find him on Facebook, CMD Fencing. And let's see, his phone number is 901-484-5546. So if you need a fence, need some fence work, call Chris Drogmiller, CMD Fencing.